Welcome to Why I Left, a podcast that explores the Great Resignation. I'm your host, Brian Akar. Join me as I chronicle real stories from real people about the reasons they decided to leave their jobs during the pandemic and what has happened since. Hello, and thanks for tuning into this episode of the Why I Left podcast. In today's episode, I chat with Yemane Williams. Now, I learned about Yemane after the TikTok video she posted about resigning was featured on Adam Grant's Work Life podcast. Yemane has learned more about herself than ever before, and the pandemic offered a path of enlightenment. So I'm really looking forward to her sharing her journey. Let's go check it out. All right, welcome back. So our guest today is Yemane Williams. Yemane exists in a moment of space being received by time with the goal of evolution. During the pandemic, she shifted her focus to herself and began a conscious awareness journey that she admits is difficult to put into words. However, she's on the path to becoming a metaphysical therapist, leading by example and walking by faith, not by sight. I'm excited to have her share her journey today. So hi, Yemane. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful.
I appreciate you joining me today.
Happy to be here. It's kind of crazy and weird hearing my bio being read back to me. I'm like, that is me.
That is you. Indeed it is. So, we're going to talk about, obviously the show's about the Great Resignation, and we're going to talk about that. But before we get into those things, and especially the video that you posted, but all right, so tell us a little bit about your background and where you're from.
So I am from Las Vegas, Nevada, the city, Sin City, where everybody is all into hospitality and food and beverage. And I used to be a cocktail waitress, so I'm very personal. I love talking to people. I just like making people smile. And yeah, that's me. That's where I started from, at least.
No, that's great. And what have you been passionate about in the work that you used to do?
It's definitely being able to share space with people. I believe that's what's passionate about it, is how the skill set that I have can bring somebody else a moment to experience happiness in that point in time. So I guess it's like I like having the ability to literally change people's day just by being me, just by doing a skill that I've developed or learned.
Right. And now describe your work journey and what's worked well in the environments that you've been a part of.
Let's see. My work journey, everywhere I started, it was always about caring for people in a way that many people don't, like having patience. I always started off with children, actually, working with kids, families, because I come from a background of early childhood education. So learning how to have patience with people and learning how to take complex things and make them super simple and understandable for people. So that was really where it started off. And then moving forward, I felt like I just was placed into now that I'm saying it right now, I guess I was placed into different age groups, learning how to deal with different people, different experiences. So every job that I've had to take the same skill of being like this attention to detail, this person on the outside, and figuring out what people want, even though they're not really saying it, which I guess taps into me tuning into the essence of things rather than the surface level, picking up on energy. What is the word I'm looking for? The anticipating guest needs. That's one of my big models when it comes to just going about work everywhere. And it seems as though that anticipation of guest needs, of the person's needs, that's definitely been something that has followed me throughout every single thing that I do. And even now, being an energy reader, a metaphysical therapist, it's just holding the space for people.
No, that's great. Now, I want to take you back in time. All right, let's go back to March of 2020. The world really comes to a halt. And we're introduced to what we now know as the COVID-19 pandemic. So tell us a little bit about how the pandemic affected you.
So the pandemic definitely affected me because I was a cocktail waitress. And so imagine a cocktail waitress working from home, which is actually what I did. My job got the cool paycheck protection program. So I was really blessed with that, being able to work. And I would always joke about how, I'm a cocktail waitress working from home. So I would have to watch documentaries about cocktails and stuff to get a little more specific. I was a cocktail waitress at a speakeasy, so it was all about prohibition. So I learned a lot about prohibition during that time. And but all not and but also during that time, I learned about where my energy was going to and how this actually was not something that really sparked joy. And so something that I value a lot is time, and that I really understood during that March 2020. And sitting down for a second, I realized I was like, wow, I was like, I don't have any hobbies, or there's not something that I do for myself. And so being able to sit down in silence and be with myself, I realized that there was an entire avenue that I hadn't even explored about who Imani was. And March 2020 was the time where I just was became aware of who I could be, the potential of Imani. And I really wanted to push forward and keep finding out who that person was.
Yeah, and so tell me a little bit about that. So what were some of the things that you started to learn during the pandemic?
So I have always been into science and physics, quantum physics. And so, obviously, not working, I had more time to read. And I actually started getting into meditation after reading this book, The Upanishads, which is Hindu mythology, or not mythology, sorry, Hindu philosophy. And I started to understand energy in a way that I'd never had before. And I started to learn about the chakra systems, the energetic vortexes within our body. And that led me to then developing a meditation technique. And through meditation, I just was connecting with myself. I'm really into, I don't like to call it is spirituality, but I don't like to put myself into a box, because I believe that this entire life is a spiritual experience. And I feel as though spirituality, when someone hears that, they automatically clump you into a box, and that's not who we are. We are multidimensional beings able to tap ourselves into everything. And so that's what really got me into it, was the meditation, was spending time with myself. I started to hear my truth. And I'm thinking about actually this quote that I just recently saw. It was basically how we receive grace, we receive answers by sometimes sitting in silence and not really always seeking out God or the universe for an answer for the next step. And so, with being able to sit with myself and having that time, because time is valuable, I was able to find out about what I could do, and I saw myself in a different light. And I realized that there was this part of myself that I was not tapping into. And what really snowballed me into learning more about myself was just figuring out ways that I can integrate this part of myself into my everyday life. And that's what really got me started, was constantly putting myself into experiences, moments where I was able to thrive as that being, but together, whole, mind, body, and soul.
Oh, that's great. And so you're learning this during the pandemic time,
Hmm.
and obviously you're still working at that time.
Hmm.
So how did the pandemic start to affect your relationship with your job?
It brought a new awareness of where my energy was not being reciprocated. It brought an awareness of actually it brought an awareness of where my passion wasn't being noticed, this untapped energy. During the pandemic, actually, I'm a video editor. I like to use video to capture moments in my life that mean the most to me. And so I was making videos about being a cocktail waitress, working from home, and I was tapping more into my creative potential. And I realized, I was like, wow, I really have this skill that I can develop on. And I started to feel myself get frustrated when I wasn't spending time on myself. And that got me to recognize this feeling of, I don't even know what I wanted to call it, but I guess it was me not tapping into my passion. It taught me to feel the essence of certain emotions, so that when I went back out into the world, when I went back out into working as a cocktail waitress, I felt that essence again, and it didn't feel right. It felt like a sword. Like, I'm thinking about the Langston Hughes poem, like A Raisin in the Sun. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up, or does it fester like a sore and then run? It felt like this dream that I had now been aware of was just festering in my heart because I was not acting on it. And so that feeling just became more apparent through every single time I wasn't spending on myself, to where I couldn't ignore it anymore.
And so now, and keep me honest here. So
Mhm,
so you're going through this and experiencing this, and you were in your role for this last role for about 2.5 years.
mhm.
And now eventually you decide, hey, it's you're not getting what you need from it, and it's time for a change. And ultimately you end up leaving in what was it, September of 2021, right?
Yes, sir. It's September 2021.
Yeah. So you leave in at that time. And so ultimately, why did you leave your job during the pandemic?
So the main reason was because I was overworked, burnout central. I had the thought to leave March, April, around actually I had the thought to leave before March actually, but in February. This was always a thought. I'm very aware of myself, and so it was through those actions and still being overworked, we my job became a skeleton crew, and I know a lot of places became that too, where they were all operating on a daily basis off of the same four people working doubled hours. And I'm not, this isn't no shame or anything to the business, because honestly I really was blessed with the management of my company. But at the end of the day, it was like, we're people too. And it was really hard to just have all of that sitting on your back. And so around September, I was working 12-hour days every single day. And although it was fun, I bought a new car, I did all of these things, but those are just material aspects, but that weren't aligned with, my truth. And I was 23 years old, and I was like, why do I feel like an 80-year-old woman? And after all of that, I took a break in between my quitting, and I went to London actually. And I just experienced life. I experienced freedom, and I experienced that aligned self, that aligned energy, to where I was like, I want more of this. And I was like, and I can't get more of this by giving my focus, my energy to something that does not align. So when I went back, it really was that trip that I was like, what I was almost addicted to that energy, where I was like, no, I was like, this isn't it. And so I threw my 2 weeks down, and I didn't even have a plan, but I was like, okay, walk by faith, not by sight. That feeling in my heart was undeniable, I guess. And I just had to see what it was trying to tell me. And I couldn't understand it with all the chaos that was happening in that space. I really believe that the energy that you're around, you can be so happy, but it's like the environment can spoil that happiness, and bring on confusion. And so I left for clarity, essentially. Yeah, literally what happened. It's crazy.
Yeah. And now I mentioned earlier on, I learned about you because you posted this video
Hmm.
that really kind of went viral on TikTok. Tell us a little bit about, that video, and did you know that it was going to catch on as much as it did?
Not at all. No, my bio on TikTok actually is, I post videos and hope for the best. Because although I'm always there, I'm not really seeking out to go viral or anything. Like, I'd really just post it and I'm living my life. But that's the thing about all of this, is that when you're true to yourself, regardless of what's going on outside of you, regardless of who's listening, who's watching, that's what brings on the abundance. Because this is what I'm learning, is you are the abundantness. So me being myself is abundant, so it attracts abundance. So it wasn't like a, okay, whatever. Like, I was like, oh my god. But it was really cool for to be a part of the what is it called, the great resignation, to be a part of this monumental moment in life's history of people choosing themselves. And so it was really cool for people to see that and being like, how can I do that? And at the end of the day, my motto is, success is loving what you do. To get anybody to see and be inspired by me just being me, I'm like, yes, you can be happy too. You can quit your job and go to London and experience freedom. And it's like, look, I'm doing it. And so I guess that matches to, I guess my motto, success is loving what you do. But also, my grandma would always tell me, lead by example. And so anything that I post, that I talk about, it's not stuff that I'm haven't done before. It's stuff that I'm doing. I'm actively living this life and just sharing it.
Right. No, and that authenticity that you shared and that I saw in the video is, to your point, is something that you feel it. You feel that it's genuine,
See,
and I
people
think
tell me
people
that.
really resonate with that. So just wanted to give my 2 cents on it.
No, no,
Um,
it really is great. People tell me all the time, they're like, I can feel the emotion. I'm like, and not that it's like confusing me or anything. I was like, yes, that, because emotion, it's real energy. So I love when people say that.
mhm.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely. So now thinking about, that decision now, so now you leave,
Hmm.
how did it impact you?
Oh man, it impacted me like it was an impact because I I'm very honest and open with this. Like I am at the time I was 23 years old. I was cocktail waitressing and I'm pretty young when it comes to money. I'm in Las Vegas. I was making it. I was a cocktail waitress working every single week on the weekend. And this is the part where I will be a little not prideful, but I'm good at what I do. And so I was making money, but I was also spending it. I wasn't saving it. So that's the part that really got me. The part that impacted me was not really having like a big savings to be able to just quit, because I know a lot of people wait for that and they're like, oh, I need to prepare. I was given an opportunity to where I didn't really have a lot of things to pay for. I know that I don't have like a big family. It's just me, so I would have been all right. But because my entire idea was to have this faith-based journey, I understood that just by choosing this step, that the next step would then materialize, even if I didn't really know what it was. And so the impact was I was doing something, or I was making actions not really feeling prepared, but I guess the feeling of being prepared is just an illusion, because at the end of the day, like, walk by faith, not by sight. It doesn't matter about, what's happening outside of you. It's like I was just following my intuition, my intuition, my heart. And so the impact was a lot about mainly kind of what is the word I'm looking for, like damage control around, oh, am I going to be able to pay this bill, or having to reach out to family. It was like the kind of cleanup part that would have been avoided if I had like savings. And so for maybe a month and a half, it was about learning like what do I not need to stop spending money on. I had to really, I call it clearing unclarified sediment, looking at my life in the moment that I was in and being like, okay, what is worth my time, what is a priority, yada yada yada. So it was coming to a balance after making this decision. That was pretty hard, because I was like, oh my god, am I doing this? And that really was testing my faith, because I easily could have just gone back to my job. I easily could have gone and got another job, but I kept choosing myself, patience, and it led me on to where I am now.
Very nice. And so it's a perfect segue. So tell me a little bit, or tell us a little bit about, what has happened since you left.
A lot, my man, a lot. I feel like I've lived 1,000 lives. I honestly, I can actually speak pretty freely on this. I Because I'm into meditation and everything, after prioritizing certain parts of my life that first month of not being not I'm working. I just did not work at all for the entire month. I was okay to sit for a second. And then when I realized that, okay, now we need to, how are we going to make money? How are we going to make ourselves okay? I sat and I meditated, and the one of the messages that came to me was, this is a moment of being tested, basically, on if you really are choosing yourself. And I'm very connected to divinity, God, guardian angel, whatever people want to call it, the universe. I don't like to put a name on it because it's all energy, it's all the same thing. But I'm very connected. So if I'm tuning in, if I'm paying attention, I get the messages very quickly. And one of the messages that I got was I was going to be tested like 3 times on choosing myself. And so I was very aware of these 3 times. And over those months, let's see, it's May, June, it's June. Jeez, life really can change in 6 months. That's crazy. um September, October, November, December. So for those 6 months I was tested. I was brought 3 opportunities, and I thought that those opportunities were going to be the end all be all, but my intention in the beginning was to work for myself, was to find abundance within myself. And so through those opportunities, I ended up working at a holiday pop-up bar. But all the opportunities that came to me, I nannied, and I also was doing some other thing. But the lesson in all of those was the same lesson that I had to learn from leaving my job in the first place, was that yes, I'm good at what I do and anything that I do actually, but am I doing it for me? I noticed that all those opportunities were me putting in so much energy that it wasn't being reciprocated, because all I was doing was lifting someone else up higher. And I had those 3 opportunities throughout the months where I would put myself into the work, and I found myself doing the same thing that I left my job for. So I had to sit back, introspection, and being like, what is the lesson here? What is it not working? And once I realized it, I acted accordingly and I left. I did the same thing. And that was every single time over those months, the more that I chose myself, the more that the plan started coming into play on who Imani is, who Imani is supposed to be. And by the third opportunity, it led me to, well, dang, I might as well just create my own business. I might as well just, do my own thing. It's like all of the energy that I'm putting in, although I'm a very good worker, it's people take advantage of that. And not that they do it on purpose, but it's like, she's reliable type thing. And I wanted to be reliable for me, and I wanted to see what I could do. So that led me to sitting down and being like, okay, what am I passionate about, and how can I expand on this? And I really have been going at it in a slow pace because I didn't want to change my passion into glory. I didn't want to change my passion into a job to where I was just doing it for other people. So I go about it in a very slow moment of being like, how can I always be true and aligned and authentic to me? I don't care if it takes time for me to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out. And because I was going with that path, that mindset of patience, of, slow moving, a lot of things did happen. I ended up losing my apartment. I had to move back home. And a lot of people seeing that, they would stop right there. They'd go back to home. But again, walk by faith, not by sight. Through those actions of me still meeting myself, being honest and true to myself, even at home, even hearing my mom, she was like, you could go get a job. And I was like, no, you don't understand. I was like, God's got a bigger plan for me type thing. And through that action of constantly choosing myself, I was brought now the opportunities that I am now of being able to speak on podcasts, being able to expand, or people coming to me and understanding what I'm doing, and asking questions. And it just took off from there. Something that I'm into is I'm into a lot of stuff, metaphysics, the energy of myself, the energy signature. There's something called human design, and I am a generator, but it's like you generating resources out into the world. But there's this strategy called wait to respond. And I'm explaining in the very simple terms so everybody can understand this. But with understanding wait to respond, I learned that by me putting my values out into the world, all that I had to do was just wait for somebody to come up to me, and then I would respond. And so it was learning that thing. And now here I am just operating off of that, to where opportunities really are just, they're finding me. I'm really not doing anything. I'm just being myself. And so that's me right now. I'm just developing who Imani is. It's cool.
No, that's really cool. And, it's refreshing to hear, one, how intentional you're being
Mm-hmm.
throughout this process, and the support system. I heard you mention, you gave a quick call out to mom there, and mom being very supportive, one, letting you come back, right?
Absolutely.
And two, just,
She loved that.
right. And two, just, her just really being able to wrap her arms around you and support,
Mm-hmm.
this next journey that you're on. So now, now that we're in this process of, you're back at home, you're not into anything just yet, but a lot of things are finding you.
Mm-hmm.
What now are you continuing to learn about yourself throughout this process?
Right now, I'm not back at home either. Like, life's been moving. So what happened
Hmm.
was I actually put in some work and I created my business, and that took off, and I was able to move out and back. Well, now I'm in my own space again. But because of that moment, because of my mom giving me that space and time, it put me into another space. So now here I am. And it really just has been okay, you know what you can do, but now can we expand on it? Can we change the quality of it to where I'm really just being a better me? I feel like I've got the basis for who Imani is, and I feel like everything that I do through the actions, through, stuff like this, learning about myself through other people, talking to other people. I always say that, people are mirrors for us. We learn. That's why we're here in this world, is to learn from others. And so by talking to others and reading their energy, and I do these things called consultations, soul, SOUL, like, where I call it soul talk. I'm talking to people's soul, their higher self, their true self, regardless if you understand it or not. It's their energy, cannot be created nor destroyed. So I'm reading the energy signature of somebody. And through that, I always say that the healer, the person that's healing, heals through their I don't like to say clients or anything, but they heal through the people that come to them. And so it's cool to see aspects of myself through other people. Even just, I'm thinking about this moment, to give an example, a real life example, when you popped up too. And you came into my reality, to where I questioned myself. I was like, why do people want to hear me? Why do blah, 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 blah. I'm not ready yet. But then it's like, I always say the same thing, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, they're not going to give you anything that you're not ready for. And so just by seeing this opportunity, it's like, wow, this is something that I am ready for, even if in that moment I didn't understand it. But it's like, you live and you learn. I'm very much a learning through experience. And so with you being here, it's like I'm able to I call it a stream of consciousness, where I never really get ready for these things. It just kind of comes out as it comes. And so to hear myself, that's why in the beginning I was like, when people were doing the bio, I was like, is that me? Yeah, because honestly, I find something new every single day about myself. After this podcast, honestly, I'm probably going to get off and be like, wow, yeah, this is the life that I'm doing. So the more that I do it, I'm finding out about my power, and I'm like, this is amazing. What else can I do? And it's just something new every single day. And at this point in my life now, I really am, like, to even give you an example, I really am just, one day at a time. My roommate asked me, she said, what are you doing this week? I'm like, I literally don't know. Whatever the universe got for me, I'm gonna just show up. So here I am showing up, and
Yeah.
it's just showing up and expanding on that. It's great. It's amazing.
No, it is great. And now you mentioned something about starting your own business. Are you able to talk a little bit about what that business is and
Yeah,
what you're up to?
absolutely. So I started a website 2 years ago. I actually had a roommate. He was into coding, and he actually built me a website. And it's called Cat in the Sink, Sink SYNC. And that's when I started getting into energy readings. And I know people talk about tarot and everything. I don't like to even use the word tarot, but that's what I started in. But I noticed that the people that it was bringing me, it was always about love life. And not saying that, love or anything is bad, but I found myself always talking to these people, and I was like, how can you want something outside of yourself when you're not even focusing on the inside? Because at the end of the day, the things outside of us are simply a reflection of our internal. So people are coming to me with these problems, and they always have to deal with love. Again, not that it's a problem, but I found myself just saying, like, master the self first, and then the rest will follow. And so I actually stopped doing tarot because I was like, you guys are relying too much on external. I was like, and I don't appreciate that. And so that was 2.5 years ago. And then now, with me being where I am, going through choosing myself, learning about myself, I was like, we really do have control over our life. But the thing is, people don't understand the aspect, not, yeah, people don't understand the aspects that they're given. I call them quantitative aspects, and how to utilize them. And so this led me into still being an oracle reader, an energy reader, an intuitive. I started to quickly learn astrology. And then I also do my own scientific research, quantum physics, about consciousness. And I started to learn that it all connects, it all mixes and mingles. And so the reason I call myself a metaphysical therapist is because I'm learning that what I do is I look at the energy through oracle decks, tarot, whatever, but it's not the energy of what's to come. It's not about the future. It's about the person, their being. It's about their journey, their intention in this lifetime. And then I use astrology. I quickly learned astrology. I very quickly pick up on things, but I quickly learned astrology. I learned how to read birth charts, and I learned that the energy, the placements of the birth chart are people's quantitative aspects. It's the gifts that the universe, God, whatever, gifted people to utilize. And I'm really big into alchemy, being an alchemist, alchemizing energy. And so with mixing all of those in together, I do these sessions. And I don't know if this is going to be a video, but I can show you a little bit. But I have these whiteboards right here. It's a big giant whiteboard that I'm showing here. And I sit for about an hour and a half or 2 hours, depending on the person. And I look at people's energy. I look at the essence of them before even meeting them. I get this like understanding of who they are. I just tell them about themselves through astrology, through energy, and we talk. And there's this placement called Chiron. And I know not a lot of people understand astrology, but this is also me doing my job, is the Chiron placement. It's called the wounded healer. And I like to describe it as this placement that shoots us in the foot for us to understand a lesson, and we heal from it. But it's a lifetime wound. It's something that we're constantly dealing with. And by starting to do these energy readings, I learned that this placement affects people and they don't even know it. And so I used my job as an energy reader to tell them about this placement, because if people can understand themselves, understand why they do certain things, understand why certain things were happening, I'm able to always tie it back into the Chiron. And so I say, if you can understand this placement and build this sort of ointment for it, so when you recognize the energy, you know exactly a routine on how to handle it, whether it be remove yourself, whether it be call up a friend, whether it be sit down, whether it be go into the mountains or whatever, at least you know what to do and how to handle it. It seems as though, not it seems, what I'm doing is a lot of people I get on these talks, and they're crying. They start crying because I'm really bringing the truth to them, and I'm essentially actually seeing them deeper than the surface level, and it's honestly amazing. And what I've been saying is, I guess what I'm doing is going to the deep end with people, because sometimes people don't want to do it alone. They recognize that they want change, and sometimes you can't do that by yourself. You just need somebody to be a space. And so that's why I call it a metaphysical therapist. Although I say, I'm like, I'm not like a certified therapist or anything, but I am someone who can listen. I am someone who can hold the space for people. But this goes back into me talking about consciousness. We are conductors. We are vessels. And those 2.5 years quitting my job and everything, going into meditative states, trance like meditative states, going really in depth with myself, and then my connection to divinity. I'm able to see things in a way that other people aren't, and just help them connect the dots. And I believe that that's sometimes all that people need, is to be able to just piece the pieces together. So it's absolutely amazing being able to be a part of people's lives in that special way, because I've worked on myself. I can now hold space for other people, and I'm really excited to see how this now develops. It's honestly, it's getting really big sometimes for me, to where I feel overwhelmed, because now people are seeing what I'm doing. I'm like,
All right. So, what type of advice would you give to our listeners who may be in a similar experience? Maybe they're working at a job that is not aligned to their values or whatever the case may be, but they don't know what to do next. What would you say to them?
I would say I would probably start off with the first thing that I ask the people that come for me for advice. I would ask them what their intention is in this lifetime. Because if you understand your intention, you understand kind of the theme for where to go next, for your life. And a lot of people kind of sit and they're like, wow, that's a good question. Like, what do you want to do in this life? If you didn't have to work or have money, like, what would you do? And a lot of people, they always say, I would just live an ethereal life. I would just, wake up in the morning, go read a book, sit outside, go garden. A lot of people don't mention work. They don't mention working for anybody else. And so after they say that, I'm like, okay, how can you do that? And a lot of people, I don't think that they ever sit and spend time with themselves, to understand what they want. And so I was talking about how everybody has this unique, precious gift, whether it just be to be a space for people, whether it being just a person who cares about family, who cares about other people. There's this precious gift that everybody has, that we have for a reason, because we all learn from each other. And so if we can sit and take the time to figure out what we like to do, even if it's just a hobby, even if it's something small, and then when you understand that, you can then look outside of yourself and being like, okay, where can I expand on this gift? Where can I expand on my authenticity? And when you're looking at your life and you see that something is not aligned with you, that's when you start asking yourself the questions. You're like, how can I act accordingly? By sitting down and plugging up to your authentic self, to divinity, whatever you want, some type of faith that you have. I believe that through that faith, you find your aligned self, and you then can start making the decisions. You can start diversifying your life and putting yourself out there. Something that I talk about is time, space, and motion. I say that time is what's required to bring things into reality. Space is the thing that we conduct ourselves into, and motion is the movement. And so when we're making this repetitive motion, this movement that is not in alignment with us, it's telling the universe that it's like, bring me more of this, bring me more of the thing that I'm focusing on. But it's like, if the thing that you're focusing on isn't in alignment with you, then it's going to just bring in confusion. It's going to have you pay so much attention to the illusional reality. I call the outside the illusional reality, to where then you start to have these feelings because you're not honoring yourself. I talked about in the beginning how I felt this passion in my heart. It was like festering, a dream deferred. It was just festering in my heart, and I needed to do something about it. I believe that, people, we have emotions, but at such an early age, the way that society works, it's like, don't be true to your emotions. It's like, at the end of the day, we got to go, go, go. But
Right.
life is
Right.
not like that anymore. Life is moving from a more masculine way of doing things, taking away gender and everything. I'm not talking about boy, girl, whatever. Masculine energy is very go getting, it's very outside of the self. I believe that, not I believe, the universe, this is very matter of fact. The universe is tapping into a more feminine energy, more in tune energy, to where we are creating from inside first, which means that you have to pay attention for inside. And sometimes what's hard about that, what's sitting with yourself, is you have to have forgiveness for the past, for what has happened, in order for you to move forward. Because when we're constantly thinking about, oh, this didn't happen, or I'm in this place, and we're not, it pulls us out of the present moment. If we can have gratitude for where we are now, understand why we're here, and then ask the questions of being like, how can I now move forward? What does this moment serve? And if you can, as soon as you realize that lesson, then I always say the same thing: you act accordingly, you move. It doesn't matter about anything outside. And I believe that's the hard part, is that forgiveness part that I'm thinking about. Is there's so many times that we, in life, a lot, so not so many times in life, a lot of people have not chosen themselves. And people forget that all time is happening all the time. The times that we didn't choose ourselves create this unclarified sediment within our body, where it's like unchecked emotions become moods, then the moods become disorders. So I'm thinking about how unchecked sadness, can turn into a different mood, and then all of a sudden it's like now you're depressed, and you're just operating as though, and I'm not saying depression isn't a thing, I'm just saying, with believing in consciousness, we should not be experiencing the same emotion, the same feeling. That's caught in a cycle. There's a universal law called the perpetual transmutation of energy. Perpetual, constantly moving, constantly going, all of the time. We constantly should be looking at how we can transmute energy. And when we catch ourselves in a cycle, it's like, stop for a second again and ask yourself some questions. That would be my advice. Yeah.
No, I think that's great advice, and I think you're having an impact on the folks who you're serving. So, look, this was a really good conversation. I really want to say thank you for taking some time to speak with me today.
Absolutely.
You never know who's going to find you out there and on the TikTok sphere. Whether any
Yeah.
type of social media. Adam Grant picked you up first, but when I
Yeah, I
heard you
didn't
in the
even, I was
credits.
like, what?
Yeah, yeah, and it was look, and if you haven't listened to it already, it's a really good episode. He does a good. I mean, he's. I'm not plugging it or anything like that, but he's got a great
Right.
podcast. But yeah, it was. I'm glad that you responded to my reach out to come on the show and just share a little bit. So, like I said, it's been a pleasure hearing your story, and would love for you to share where our listeners can follow or support you.
So I have a link tree. Love those, where you just throw in all the links. You can find me there. It's linktree.com/Imani Arion, and it's spelled YEMANEARIEON. And there you can find actually another podcast. This is my second guest speaking podcast. I'm excited. But there you can find
Oh,
that podcast that
nice.
I talked about. What's your time worth? I explain that. And then you can find any of my energy consultations. I got book recommendations, all of the books I read. I read a lot of science books. And then my social medias. I definitely would say that something that I pride myself on is I'm a different person on all social media, but not a different person. It's just I match my energy. So if you want to see who Imani is and how I live life, Instagram. If you want to see me talk about spirituality and consciousness, TikTok. If you want to see my creative aspects, go to YouTube. That's where I put my heart into it. And then Twitter, I'm just absolutely unhinged and crazy. But that's the that's the beauty of life. There's different
Yeah.
aspects to us, and just find the right outlet.
Yeah, remember what I was saying earlier, that authenticity. See, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. You recognize who you are on Twitter,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so
Yeah, oh
so I
yeah.
like that.
I'm a true 24-year-old on Twitter.
Nothing wrong
Everywhere
with
else I'm
that.
like 80.
Nothing wrong with that at all. So again, thank you for that info. And so look, that'll do it for this episode today. Again, I want to thank my guest, Imani, for joining me. I'll be sure to share her information, that Linktree info, in our show notes. So I hope everyone has a great week. Imani, I hope you enjoy yourself out there in Nevada. And
Have a
thanks again for coming on
wonderful-
board.
Absolutely. You guys have a wonderful day.
The Great Resignation, people leaving their jobs in droves. There's a lot of buzz happening in the job market of late. Now, did you or someone you know leave your job during the pandemic and want to share your story? We've been having some really good conversations in this space, so if you're interested, I'd love to have you join the program. If so, here's how you can do it. First, you can email us at hello@whyleft.co. That's hello@whyleft.co. Or visit us online at whyleft.co. That's whyleft.co. Look forward to having you join the conversation. Thanks again for listening to Why I Left. Be sure to join us next time for more stories from the Great Resignation. Visit us at www.whyleft.co. That's whyleft.co. And subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.